We're live again. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you're coming from. We are here in a new CTF reveal. This time it's CTF number 8. Um, Itzik, why don't we start with, first of all, explaining the challenge? And then, as usual, we'll look at a little bit of the code and see how to solve this.
Absolutely. So this is a very typical XSS vulnerability that we need to find here. What we want to do is inject the alert Wizer into our code. Done a bunch of those in the past. Um, in here, you can see that the developer even knew and understood that there's an XSS vulnerability, but their prevention and their remediation wasn't particularly good. So our goal is to find a bypass and to actually bypass the developer's protection here.
Perfect. So let's quickly review the code and yeah, show us sort of. It's a very short script,
Okay, yeah,
so
it's a
let's go
short
over it
piece of code. It's presenting a menu, not even very important, but here's the menu. And what it does, it receives. So first of all, it shows the menu, but if you apply a direct link string query string to it or an argument on a get parameter, okay, what it does, it's a React method. What it does, it receives that and it creates a deep link, so it goes to the menu item that you selected. But the developer here actually noticed that this could be vulnerable, and he said, okay, what could happen here? What could happen here is actually people using JavaScript colon, on the URL, and that's something that people do, and it's a vulnerability. So what the developer said is maybe I'll use a regular expression, and I will eliminate any JavaScript with any case. So it's case insensitive replacement of the word JavaScript. But there's a bypass to it that hackers love, and the way to bypass it is to actually kind of like split the JavaScript into two pieces so that the replace won't even find it. We'll replace one, and the result will be what we're looking to get. So just hackers love those type of things because they find kind of like bypasses to certain protections of developers.
So the reason I like this so much, this type of challenge, is because this also is an example of how hackers bypass application firewalls, right? A lot of times, actually, many of the application firewalls use, pattern matching and regular expressions and stuff like that to look at the URL. And this is, I think, is a perfect example of the vulnerability of using regular expressions as a method to basically sanitize the URLs. So, yeah, so why don't you show us sort of let's start with, first of all, showing the intended behavior. So,
Right.
like, it won't work with the regular JavaScript. So it basically replaces it. And then let's see how we can bypass it.
Right. So the intended behavior is, as you can see, the menu here takes us to places. So we can go back and forth. If you provide a direct link with, equals, let's say, users, I think that's users, then it takes us to the users directly. That's the intended behavior. Very simple. But, what ended up happening, so that was prevented. So direct link um, equals, so doing direct link equals JavaScript colon and some JavaScript here is prevented by the code, because if you can see here, we are replacing any instance of JavaScript. Okay, so the bypass is actually not very surprising. What the hacker could do is could split the JavaScript into two, where after replacing one JavaScript on this, the result will be JavaScript, right? So you can see here a URL that actually solves it, okay? Exactly as I said, JavaScript with the alert. And you can see that we were able to inject the Wizer alert into it, okay?
Can you copy the URL into the solution so we can see it more clearly?
Yep. So this is the URL here. What we've done is you can see the direct link. There's Java, JavaScript, and script. So what ends up happening is the JavaScript here is replaced out, and the result, sorry, and the result at the end of the day, here, sorry. And when you replace this, the end result is JavaScript. Exactly. So it stitches the two parts of the broken JavaScript into a word. So that's a bypass that hackers really love because they find ways to kind of like, bypass the replacements and regular expressions this way.
So if you delete this, right? Can you delete it? It
Yeah,
basically becomes the regular JavaScript.
exactly. And that's exactly the bypass here. And the thing is, even though it's very simple, right? Developers typically miss it because you don't think about it. You don't think about those bypasses. And hackers think this way. So we need to be aware of that. And we need to think about ways to prevent it, which again, you see in the write-up as well, but we'll talk about the takeaways and we can explain what we think we should, do in such cases to prevent it.
So what I think is an important lesson here as well is that it's one thing to detect a vulnerability, and it's a second thing understanding how to exploit it. Because in this case, we learned that the developer knew about the vulnerability. So they were aware of it, right? So they wanted to write secure code, which actually is great, addressing the problem. The thing is that they didn't really understand how to exploit the vulnerability. Therefore, they came up with the wrong solution.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yep,
happens often. So it's not enough just to understand the vulnerability. It's also important to understand how it can be exploited. And I
right.
think and I think that's why it's important to sort of learn to think like an attacker.
Exactly. Exactly. What I think is nice about this example is it shows why we took the Wizer took the approach that developers should learn how to break. And by learning how to break, you learn how the mind works. As a developer, you think differently once you understand that because you say, "Oh, of course, they can, completely bypass that very easily." Once you deeply understand the way they think. That's why our approach is to show first how to break it and then how to fix it.
Yeah, I think it's a key thing. And again, this goes back to how often attackers also attack the application firewalls. And I've talked to so many hackers, and they're actually amused sometimes by the application firewalls. It's like a small challenge, it's fun. So that goes back to why you can't just rely on technology to sort of protect you,
Mhm.
because when there is a will, there's a way, and you just need to write it. You write your code secure from the get go, and you need to understand how attackers think and how they operate in order to understand how to defend.
Exactly.
Cool. So let's
So
go.
let's
Yeah,
talk about the what. Let's talk about the takeaways a little bit.
let's do that.
Cool. So we reviewed the code. It's a very simple code. There's nothing to go too deep here. We looked at a solution, possible solution, which is explained here. The problem is XSS, and again, we talked about it numerous times about the fact that XSS is simply just an entry point. Running things in the context of the user is extremely dangerous, and we don't need to explain a lot more why. However, in terms of the takeaways, there are two main takeaways here. One is the angle of when you choose to sanitize inputs, you need to choose a proven sanitization strategy. At least in this case, choose a strategy that is recursive. Because one of the bypasses is, again, replacement is bypassed pretty easily. But if you do recursive replacement, replace until it's gone completely, then there's no way you can be bypassed. There are also tools that allow you that do it for you. So you can include libraries and actually sanitize it and don't worry about it. That's even better. The second takeaway is actually also kind of like a different angle of the same thing. In this case, the implementation doesn't even call for such an open ended solution. What we've seen here is that the query string, the argument could have been anything pretty much. We just kind of like created a deny list of what we don't allow with the replace. But the best approach would be an allow list to go to work on the other direction and to say, what are the links that I'm allowing, or what are the names of the items that I'm allowing under direct link? It's users, groups, or whatever the third option was here. Profile, right? So if I just limit it to those three items, then I prevent it. And the issue is that developers don't think this way. We always think about, I'm also a developer, we always think about a future flexibility. What if I would want this? And what if I would want that? And we kind of sometimes we have a tendency to leave it wide open to allow for flexibility. That's not very good for security reasons. Start with the bare minimum and start to open it up slowly but surely as it's needed.
Great. So I think, yeah, this is, I love this example. It's something, it's a two paper, right? It was two paper.
Yep.
Um, I think, it's not a very difficult one to solve, even though I don't think many have solved it.
Yep.
But, when we look at who solves it, usually this is probably a simple one for a hacker and a little bit more complicated one for a developer because just of the way they think. But yeah, look, I enjoy this. I'm also learning a lot, and it's fun solving these challenges. And I hope you guys also learn from this. This is a great opportunity. This is also recorded, and then we create a short summary of this, and we include that in the write up. This is such an amazing opportunity for you guys to share this with your team. They can play the CTFs. This one is a retired one, so we're showing how to solve it. But we have, I think, like 6 that are still live and open, and we're adding one every about 2 weeks. So yeah,
Tomorrow
go
there's one.
ahead.
We're releasing one tomorrow.
Oh, cool. How many peppers is that one?
That's a simple one, actually.
Okay.
That's a simple one.
So
Again, with an important takeaway. So even if it's simple, it can have an important takeaway, and it's worth the time to look at it because we are missing things like that many times.
yeah, I love the simple ones because they're sort of like nuggets. They remind us of the things we need to think about. It builds that habit of writing secure code without investing too much brain power for the entire weekend. So, those are the fun ones. And yeah, so that's it, guys, for this time. Thank you very much, Itzik, for
Thank you.
building them and sharing this with us.
Always
And
fun. Always a
then
pleasure.
takeaways. And tomorrow, yeah, you can give it a go, the new one tomorrow. And when are you launching it? It's like a 10 a.m., right?
10 a.m. Eastern. Yep.
Okay. So
USC.
until then, talk to you later. Bye bye.
Bye bye.